Do you suffer from nightmares, flashbacks, hallucinations? Is it impacting your ability to do everyday activities like take over as crime boss? Do you feel uneasy and unable to trust people around you? Then talk to your doctor about quercetin. Quercetin may not be for everyone. Common side effects include lost limbs, hairballs, and a sudden urge to urinate. Do not take quercetin if you do not have health insurance, as unexpected injuries have been reported. Ask your doctor if quercetin is right for you, because as long as the galaxy has crime lords, there'll always be a need for quercetin. Welcome to Streaming Star Wars, another Friday night. Nick, how are you doing, my friend?
Present and accounted for.
Okay, all right. We'll take that. Present and accounted for. That's all right. Hey, that's a much more subdued response, but we'll take it. We'll take it.
It's been one of those weeks, and I feel like it's been Monday most of the week, not to get too Garfield on you, but it's Friday, and it's time to drink some whiskey. It's time to talk with a friend about Star Wars, and it's time to, just do what we do best. So let me start by raising a glass, not only to you.
Yeah.
Oh, look at that. The Dark Lord. Of course, I've got the Falcon being chased by some TIE fighters.
Very good. It's kind of
so I'm going to raise my glass to you, but I'm also going to raise my glass to the friends that are already hanging out in the live chat. We've got a bunch of folks here. Samuel, Framey, Matthew, Wikipedia's here.
Nice.
Rare Curly AJ, which is one of my kids.
Very nice.
We've got a large group. So cheers and happy Friday.
Happy Friday. Yeah. So, we normally do the show, and that's kind of a lie, because we thought we would only do the show when there was a show on Disney Plus. But the reality is right now there's so much stuff going on in the Star Wars universe. Like, we just want to talk about it. And you and I mean, a little bit behind the curtain here, like you and I probably send 100 texts a day back and forth, whether it's about something happening on Twitter or some new news. And we go back and forth on the news all the time. And so this really, Friday nights are the only opportunity for us to actually talk about it, and to be able to do it with the long list of people you already listed off, and the people who will join us throughout and whatnot. It's great. But by the way, I didn't ask you before we went on. Do you still have those Star Wars trivia questions?
I do. I have them actually literally right here in front of me.
Because I think we have to figure out a way to get somebody who's watching us to join us at some point. Because I have an extra Cobb Vanth pod pop that I want to give away. So maybe we'll do that a little bit later in the show. So,
absolutely.
But Nick,
whole stack of cards.
Oh, nice. Very nice. Tell the good people what we want to talk about this evening.
Excellent. We decided, because it's kind of become a running joke, and it probably is a part of either the streaming Star Wars bingo card that is being created somewhere, or just one of our streaming Star Wars drinking games, when we use the phrase "an embarrassment of riches," the bounty of Star Wars content. Like we constantly use those phrases talking about all the things that have been presented to us in the last year, 2 years, whether it's movies, TV shows, books, comics, games, toys. There's so much stuff out there. And most recently, of course, on this show, since Book of Boba Fett ended, you and I have talked a bunch about Kenobi. We've talked about Celebration. But there's even so many things beyond that. So we decided, wouldn't it be fun tonight and one of these kind of in-between streaming Star Wars nights to just talk about some of these other things outside the realm of what's most immediate that we know is on the horizon for Star Wars.
Yeah. And it falls under all kinds of categories. Like, there's video games, there's movies, there's TV shows, there's comic books, there's books, there's like so many things happening. And it's funny, I think this kind of came out of also as we were talking about, every week we do the news, we do this disturbances in the force thing, and every single week, hey, look, Scotty J. Rowe is joining us from
Scotty J. Rowe joining us from Belize.
He's in Belize, and he's checking it. Look, we are an international
That's right.
show.
We've gone international.
We've gone global. But there's so much going on, and the news this week really disturbances in the force is like everywhere. So maybe let's hit the news real quick and then jump into the show and talk about some things. All right, here we go.
Go for it.
Well, emerging information about The Acolyte, a new video game is announced, and the stars of the Kenobi series share how they prepared. Give us 5 minutes, and we'll give you the galaxy. Another week of... there we go. Cut that. Try that again. Another week. Another flood of news, rumors, clickbait, and conversation. This is Pete Fletzer, and welcome to Disturbances in the Force. All the links to the original sources can be found in the notes below, and I urge you to check them out. So let's get to it. The Leslie Headland Disney Plus Star Wars show called Acolyte seems to be getting closer to being ready to start filming. According to the website Illuminati, it is set to begin rolling cameras in October this year, and 2 characters have been leaked. One is called Paul at this point, and it's calling for a actor who is a white man in his 50s, and the second is a black girl, 8 to 10 years old, called Miri. There is very little known about the series other than it allegedly takes place in the final days of the High Republic and is described as a mystery thriller. Illuminati also brought the news that Amandla Stenberg would be playing the lead in the show. There's no official word from Lucasfilm about the production or the release date at this time. Well, Star Wars Celebration continues to announce guests and photo ops for the upcoming Mega Fan Convention in Anaheim next month. And this week, they revealed that in addition to celebrities like Ashley Eckstein, Anthony Daniels, and Ian McDiarmid, they've added some more big names to the list of people who will be available to meet and greet. First of all, Kelly Marie Tran, best known for her role as Rose Tico, will be at the event, as will Billie Lourd, daughter of the late Carrie Fisher and the actress who played Lieutenant Connix in the sequel trilogy. And finally, just before we went to tape today, they announced that Ewan McGregor will be doing meet and greets for $300. Fans can purchase photo op and autograph slots now by visiting www.starwarscelebration.com. Star Wars Celebration takes place in Anaheim from May 26th through the 29th. LEGO Star Wars The Skywalker Saga surpassed all previous LEGO console game launches, selling more than 3.2 million copies worldwide in its first 2 weeks. It has outsold Jedi Fallen Order and Star Wars Squadrons, the 2 most recent Star Wars console games. 2 DLC character packs have already been released, including fan favorites from Rogue One, as well as skins from the original 1999 LEGO Star Wars game. In other video game news, Lucasfilm Games and Skydance New Media announced a new Star Wars action-adventure game is in development. At the helm of this is the yet-to-be-titled release, and at the helm is Anna Hedning. Anna is the creator of the wildly popular and recently adapted to film game Uncharted. She was also attached to the now-canceled Project Ragtag, which was a Star Wars game that started work in 2013, but was shut down around the time of the Disney-Lucasfilm merger. This game joins a growing list of upcoming Star Wars adventures, including an open-world game from Ubisoft Massive and 3 games from Respawn Entertainment, including an expected Jedi Fallen Order sequel. There's no release date set for this or any of the titles in the works at this time. Well, fans of the Book of Boba Fett will get a behind-the-scenes look at the show when a new Disney Gallery episode drops on Star Wars Day, May 4th. According to the website whatsondisneyplus.com, the documentary will air on Disney Plus, and like the other gallery shows, it'll feature interviews and insight into the making of season 1 of the series. There are no other Disney Plus releases signaled for May the 4th at this time, but the Ewan McGregor-led series Obi-Wan Kenobi drops on May 27th. In an interview with Entertainment Weekly, Hayden Christensen talked about how he was preparing to return to the screen as Darth Vader in that upcoming Kenobi series. He said, quote, "I went back and rewatched all the films, and I also got into the animated shows, The Clone Wars and Rebels. It was interesting," he said, that they did a lot with these characters in those shows, and they did further explore the relationships. He went on to say that there was interesting stuff to learn about. Indeed, there is. There are 7 seasons of Clone Wars and 4 of Rebels, all expanding the stories between episodes 2 and 3, and 3 and 4 of the Star Wars saga. Ewan McGregor may not have watched the animated shows, but he did watch the movies. He said, quote, I watched them from start to finish, all 9 movies, just to get back into that world. It was interesting to watch our films because I hadn't seen them since they came out, not at all. So it was cool to see them and interesting to watch them and enjoy them without all the noise that was coming out around when they came out. In related news, Natalie Holt has been named as the composer for the score of the Obi-Wan Kenobi series. In an interview with Vanity Fair Online, it was revealed that the composer of the Loki series score has completed the soundtrack. It was also announced earlier this year that John Williams has created the original theme song for the show, and the score is being conducted by Anthony Parnther, who performed baton duties on Book of Boba Fett and The Mandalorian. Natalie Holt is the first woman to create a soundtrack for a Star Wars property and will sing and play viola in the orchestration. Obi-Wan Kenobi drops on Friday during Star Wars Celebration. Well, that wraps it up for this week's Disturbances in the Force. Make sure to check out the ATG Cast podcast stream for weekly one-on-one interviews with the people behind the fandom. This Thursday, Podcast of the Wheels is joined by former host of The Star Wars Show, Mr. Peter Townley, talking about Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. Please subscribe for regular updates. Follow us on all your social media channels at ATGcast and visit our website at atgcast.com to keep up with us, find our merch, and get information about supporting the show as an ATG patron. Thank you so much for listening, and may the Force be with you. There's a lot of news this week, Nick. A lot. There's a lot to get through, man. I think you're muted, Nick.
That's okay. Then what makes that even better is literally when we both came back on screen after that was the words out of my mouth were, that's a lot of news. As you said, that's
So
a lot of news.
I was sort of puppeteering for you.
Yeah, you got it. But it is a lot of news, but it's fun when we have a lot of Star Wars news. And it was even engaging for the folks hanging out in the live chat, which has been added to since we got started. Samuel is here. Gary Moore popped in.
Nice.
So greetings to all of you. Happy Friday. And there was a lot of chatter about the Ewan announcement. Framey announced that Amy has gotten a spot on Friday to Ewan, which is exciting.
That's awesome.
Matthew wonders what would it cost if Mark Hamill showed up.
Oh.
And I like how, yes, one of my children has chimed in. Natalie Holt also did the music for the Loki show, which is very popular in my household. So I'm excited to see what she's going to do with the music for Kenobi. That's exciting. And actually, I like this comment too. Samuel said, Disney Gallery gets better with each one of these. And I wholeheartedly agree. And you and I talk about all the time, Pete. I'm such a sucker for behind the scenes and process stories and how do things get made that like I'm always anticipating halfway through any series of whatever they give us, like, ooh, what's the gallery going to be like?
Yeah.
Ooh, what are we going to get? In fact, I think I kind of very selfishly complained. The first season of Mando, we got an equal amount of gallery episodes as there were episodes in season 1 of Mando.
Yeah.
So selfishly, I expected that for season 2 of Mando, and we only got 1.
Right. But it was incredibly deep.
Right. We got the Luke one later.
Yeah. Yep.
But I love that. So I'm with Samuel. I'm excited for the Book of Boba Fett gallery episode, and what is that going to bring us from there?
Yeah, no, I'm excited for. It's funny, and I seem to talk a lot about it with guests on Around the Galaxy. There's something about Star Wars that just like the people who are fans also want to become fans of what happened behind the scenes. And Star Wars made celebrities of those behind the scenes people of Ben Burtt, of all the effects creators who went on to become celebrities in their own right. And that's and I think that has continued, and it's so interesting to watch the galleries, to hear from somebody like Jon Favreau, who's now he's Star Wars now. Who would have thought that the guy who brought us Iron Man, the guy from from
Swingers.
Swingers, right,
Yep.
would become the Star Wars guy. It's really wild. And honestly,
Wasn't he somebody's boyfriend in Friends at one point?
I think he was. I
Yeah,
think you're
like
right. Yep. So
he
this
was in the
guy,
episode of The Sopranos that I love. Like this guy, but and that's
and
what
that,
exciting. Go ahead.
no, I was gonna say that's what's exciting about the combination of him and Filoni. Who Filoni is a
Yes.
student of Star Wars, and Favreau has become a student of the new way of making films. And together, they're just creating amazing thing. Again, it's that, not to steal from the name of this episode, but I mean, it's an embarrassment of riches of amazing Star Wars stuff. Think about the
It
stuff
really
that we're
is.
getting
And
on television. It's insane.
well, and it points to one of the things that we've talked about a couple of weeks ago, certainly when we talked about Celebration. But that panel on Saturday
Yeah.
is, I think it's called Mando Plus.
Yep.
And, I listened to something earlier this week where they said, calling it Mando Plus is basically them avoiding every way of saying it's just the Mandoverse, because
Right.
we've all kind of talked about, how Mando is expanded into Book of Boba Fett, that's going to connect to Ahsoka, that's going to connect to, these different series and that shared thread. But that panel on Saturday is wildly intriguing at this point, because these two guys are the cornerstone and future of Star Wars.
Yeah. 100%.
And let's bring this up before we go any farther. Speaking of Celebration, the last time you and I were on air together,
Yes.
we've had a dramatic change since then.
Yes, we have.
Last time we did the show, I was not going to be able to attend Star Wars Celebration.
Yes.
But as I have said several times, forces have conspired. We'll call it the will of the Force.
Right.
I am now going to get to go, and you and I are going to get to be there together. We're making some plans to hopefully do a streaming Star Wars while we're there.
Yep.
We've got some stuff to hand out to people that come and find us. And most importantly, we're going to get to meet all of these friends, all of these amazing supporters that we have met and become friends with over the last couple of years. And I could not be more excited. I could not be more thankful for all the things that have worked out to allow me to get to be there. But it wasn't like that a couple of weeks ago, and now it is. So the narrative has changed.
I am so excited about that. I mean, first of all, I'm excited that of the list of people that I'll actually get to meet, that I've been, honestly, and I've said it on a couple of different shows. I said it when I was on the Thank the Maker show, and I've said it here. And what's so interesting is, and it doesn't matter what your mental state was over the last 2 years, how the pandemic affected you, if you've been a part of this sort of, I mean, and I think we'll learn at Celebration, it's a very small circle. We think it's this big monstrous circle of all the people who hang out with us on a weekly basis. And those of you that do, we love you guys so much. But to be able to meet even a handful of those folks is going to be amazing. And to finally, honestly, all the work you and I have done together, not just since we've sort of combined our shows on the ATG Cast stream, but just talking and sort of bouncing ideas off each other and growing our shows, to be able to actually shake your hand at, it's going to be a big, ugly hug, right? So
yeah, I would say Star Wars Celebration rules be damned. I'm going to be hugging some necks, and I don't care who knows it. Like, there are some people that are just going to have to, we're going to have to deal with it. But
just going to have,
but yeah, deal. And that's exactly it. And to make those connections, because it has meant so much. Star Wars always means so much to us, but it has meant so much more in the last 2 years for exactly the reasons you talked about. And so I am humbled to get to make that journey. I'm honestly excited to make this solo journey. Not that I don't go places by myself. It's usually for work or around town, but like, I just get to go have an adventure and go, my family, who are wonderful, are going to hang out and be home and do their normal thing. And I get to go hang out with, as my wife lovingly calls all of you, my weird space friends for, 4 or 5 days. And it's going to be fantastic. And it's going to tie into, some of the things that we're going to talk about tonight, because there's a lot of crossover with panels and some of the things that we're going to get at Celebration.
Yep. And you're going to definitely want to watch and follow our social media. If you're not subscribed to the channel, please do so, because we can't tell you when we're going to do the show, because we don't know when. There will be a time when we're going to try to get a streaming Star Wars live there, whether it's live or recorded, hopefully live, to get your,
that's right,
the direct impact and input from all of you. Our patrons are going to get a little something special from Star Wars Celebration. So if you're not a patron, you should be. Check us out at patreon.com/ATGcast. And Yeah, it's just going to be it's so surreal that it's less than 40 days away right now.
Yep,
So
it is
very excited.
34. I asked Siri before he came online. It's 34 days away.
That's amazing.
It
Amazing.
is.
So, Nick, we heard in the news tonight, and we've been following just so much. I mean, every single day, it feels like
Hmm.
either there's an announcement about something new or some reinforcement of something that we knew was coming. Um, where do we want to start in talking about honestly this? As you said at the top, we use it as kind of an overused phrase, but it's not wrong. This embarrassment of riches of all the Star Wars content that's coming over the next 2 to 3 years alone. I mean, we're not even talking about 4 or 5, 10 years from now. We're
Right.
talking about the next 24 months. There's so much
Hmm.
happening.
There it is. Let's do this. And we went through, we had movies, TVs, we had books, comics, toys, and video games.
Yep.
Obviously, the two biggest ones are going to be movies and TV shows.
Yeah.
Let's jump in with movies
Sure.
because movies feels a little bit farther out. It's a little more nebulous, a little more like we know some things, but we don't. And then we'll get to TV shows because that's when it starts to get more real.
Yeah.
So you and I kind of split this list up a little bit. So when we're talking about movies, and I'm just going to kind of throw them out, get your comments and thoughts, and then I'll add anything in that you're thinking about. But the first one, and the one that seems to be the most sure, is Rogue Squadron, Patty
Right.
Jenkins, which did have a little bit of some up and down, but it's still going. It's still
Yep.
something that's happening, and despite the little hiccups that seem to be coming along, it's the one we know seemingly the most about, right?
Yep. Yep. And yet knowing nothing about it, because interestingly, Michael Stackpole, all he said is that he's excited to hear it. He can't wait to see it himself. But to me, that's good news in that Patty hasn't thrown out those amazing books that he's done.
Correct.
And the fact that they've had conversations means that things are happening. And again, she hasn't gone to him and said, "Hey, what should I do with this character?" They've acknowledged it, and I think that's one of the most important things about not just Rogue Squadron, but I think Rogue Squadron is starting to kind of paint this picture of things that we're seeing a lot of, and I feel like the EU fans that were pissed off that all their content from the 90s, right? I'm calling it their content. It's all of our as fans content, but who are unhappy that that content became Legends.
Yeah.
It's things like Rogue Squadron and subtle hints and handoffs that we see that tell people that remind us that that stuff isn't gone. That stuff
Correct.
is being brought to us in different ways. And look,
Mhm.
I would be surprised based just simply on the conversation that I had with Michael and some of the rumors. Again, I don't think it's going to be word for word that book, but I think there's going to be a shared universe. I think there's going to be connections. I think we're going to see at the very least character names come back that we got from those books, and that's exciting because that's a handoff and a callback to honestly a little bit of respect to those people who have always been Star Wars fans even through those dark times and these novels that are no
Mhm.
longer considered canon.
But at the same time, and we can hit on this, and we're going to do books and comics a little more briefly just because there's not as much there. And you and I joked earlier, comics are the thing I know the least about. But you are right. And I'm a living example right
Look at that.
here.
Yep. The
They
re-releases. Yep.
re-released
Yep.
the Heir to the Empire original Thrawn trilogy, which is one of my favorite Star Wars book things of all time. And I grew
Yep.
up in that period where it was the Jedi Academy trilogy, the Thrawn trilogy, the Truce at Bakura, like all these, other books and other things. They're still relevant and they're still getting that love. And I think with something like Rogue Squadron and with Michael Stackpole and the books that he wrote, it becomes the chance to throw that fan service in there.
Yep.
It's not being thrown out completely. And somebody said it, and I'm actually was probably a guest on your show at some point, but I love the idea of, some of these legend stories are stories that the characters in universe told around campfires.
Yeah.
Was the way
Yep.
it was summarized. Like these were the legends, the same way you go and tell, oh yeah, when I was a kid, my grandfather did whatever.
Right.
Like there's still a way to weave these stories in, and something like, Rogue Squadron, something like that has the opportunity to add those layers.
Well, I mean, and if you were ever wondering if there was some sort of tip of the hat to that, what is it? It's I think it's the Twilight of the Apprentice episodes
Yes,
of Rebels when Ahsoka says, "Yeah, there's a little bit of truth in every legend,"
correct.
and
She
that's
literally says it.
yeah, she tells you, right? Yeah. So Thrawn may have the series may have come out in that pre episode 4 world, or pre episode 7 world, but it's coming back in that pre episode 4 world, and now post episode 6 because we're gonna see it in the Ahsoka series.
Yeah. So Rogue Squadron is exciting. Again, seems to be the most cemented, the one that is still on track. The next one that I have on the list is where'd my thing go? The Taika Project.
Oh yes, yep.
We know, and we got the trailer last week, actually Monday of this week, for Thor: Love and Thunder, which I'm very, very excited about because my all-time favorite MCU movie is Thor: Ragnarok.
Yeah,
I just think it's phenomenal on so many levels. But when this was announced, it was actually December 10th of 2020 when they had that big investor call.
yep.
And I know that because it was my wedding anniversary. I was in the kitchen cooking dinner while watching the investor call on my telephone. And when Kathy Kennedy said that there's going to be a Star Wars movie with Taika Waititi, I was just silent. Like I didn't know what to do with myself.
Yeah.
I don't know that we've heard much other than now that he's finishing up Love and Thunder. I think that's the next thing on his radar. But I'm really excited for that because I think it has the ability, one, to be funny, and Taika
Yep.
does humor in a really great way. But it also has the opportunity to be weird. And I love that even in this graphic, we kind of get this Schoolhouse Rocks, which is what I think that font is. Like it's a funky, and that was a choice. Like they made a choice to use
Sure.
that graphic when they did it, when she made this announcement. Um, I'm really excited about the possibility of a Taika Waititi Star Wars. What do you think about that?
Yeah, and so I'm. It's funny you say that. I don't know that if Ragnarok is my favorite MCU film, but it's certainly my favorite Thor movie,
Yeah.
and I think the sensibilities that he brings are honestly perfect for Star Wars because I think
Mm-hmm.
oftentimes, and it's funny as Star Wars has evolved as the modern day myth and as the generation that was born into it has grown up, we forget sometimes that the best parts of Star Wars sometimes are the funny parts. Even
The
if you
dumb,
go,
silly parts.
yes, go all the way
We're all
back to A
fine
New
here. How
Hope.
are you?
Exactly. Go back to A
Fly
New. I mean,
casual.
I talk all the time about going to see A New Hope when it was re-released in 1997 and
Yep.
being in a full movie theater in New York City and people laughing at C3PO saying "Curse my metal body." Like we forgot, like that's funny
Yeah.
stuff.
It's
And
funny.
so Taika, his ability to do that, I think, is great. I mean, even the characters he plays, even when he was in Free Guy, just
Mm-hmm.
that kind of sense of humor is kind of nerdy, perfect Star Wars humor. So I'm
Yeah.
looking forward to that. And
Absolutely.
I think the key to the Taika movie needs to be releasing him from any sort of connection to Star Wars characters we know, so that we
Canon.
cannot,
Yeah.
because Star Wars fans will be like, well, there's no way that a Wookiee would be that funny or whatever. Like they
Right.
need to give him a free, like give him a corner of the Star Wars universe and let him do what he wants to do with it
Mm-hmm.
and let him go. I mean Korg in Ragnarok. Give me a lot of that. Give me weird
Korg
aliens.
talking
Yep.
about his mom's boyfriend and the resurrection or the insurrection and not printing enough pamphlets
Right.
makes me laugh every time. Like
Every time.
it's so real world, whatever. And Gary and Samuel both have a great point. IG-11, I
Yeah.
will self-destruct. That
Yes.
self-destruct bit in that first episode of Mandalorian made me laugh. And
Yep.
it goes exactly back to what you said.
Yeah.
Framey says, could Taika be making Wilrow Hood a Star Wars story?
He
If
could
so,
be.
I'm here for it. It's fine. And in a very unsolicited plug, because HBO Max does not sponsor us in any way, shape, or form, I'm about halfway through Our Flag Means Death right now, which is a
Oh,
Taika
yes. So
project. It's
funny. Yep.
fantastic. It's
It is great.
really, really good. I can't wait to finish
So
it.
here's the thing to think about, and
Yeah.
when I'm glad somebody brought up, a couple people brought up the IG-11
Mhm.
comment, because think about where that character appeared. We still had not seen Baby Yoda, Grogu. We
Yep.
still had no idea what the hell this series was about, and we're 80% of the way through the show, and and we needed something, right? Kuil was cool. He was different. It was cool to see the Mandalorian, and oh look, they're blurgs, and that was cool. But the Taika character, I was ready for a Mandalorian and IG-11 or IG-88, IG-11, sorry, show. Like, go with it from there. Like, and that perfect amount of humor, that's what made that Star Wars show feel like a Star Wars show. Just like when I watched Rebels, the first episode of Rebels, there was enough humor, enough action,
Yep.
and brought us to whatever that sort of magic moment of Star Wars is. And Taika did a great job with that. And that moment, and I'm glad they brought that up, because that is why I have confidence that Taika is going to do something amazing with Star Wars.
Without a doubt. And that, again, I'm such a fan. And there are plenty of things that he's done that I haven't had a chance to see yet.
Yep.
I've heard nothing but good things about Jojo Rabbit. I've heard nothing but good things about What We Do in the Shadows. But I'm old. I'm a parent. I have a job. Like, there's not enough time to watch all the things I want to watch. So, like, they're on my to-do list. But everything that Taika has done to this point, I'm 100% on board for. And so
Absolutely.
bringing that energy into Star Wars, let's go. Like,
Yeah.
full hearts. What is it from Friday Night Lights? Full hearts, full minds, can't lose. That's not it. But
I don't know. I never watched that show.
That's okay. I've had 2 whiskeys. It doesn't matter. Timothy says, not going to be around much, fellas. Dark alcohols plus The Last of Us equals lots of screaming and dad and weeping Timo. They're playing video games and listening to us in the background.
Well, Tim, we're glad that you're able to join us, man. We haven't seen you in a while, so it's great to see you.
Hey, JD. I see JD just popped in.
Nice.
Good to see you. All right, so let's keep this moving because the next two are going to be a little bit quicker. Kevin Feige project. That's another one that has not been shut down. That is not one that we've heard a lot about, but we have heard, and not necessarily from a directorial standpoint, but I think from an executive producer standpoint, there is a Kevin Feige Star Wars project on the table. And so my question to you, Pete, is Kevin Feige has been the glue that has allowed the MCU to be what it is.
Yep.
He has been that person at the top. And again, Favreau's been involved. We've talked about that already. What are the brothers' names that did Civil War and Winter Soldier? Yeah, those guys. They're fantastic. Like, it's been such a good mix. So to bring that energy into Star Wars, how do you feel about a Kevin Feige Star Wars project?
So I'm going to give you my hot take. I may have said this before on my show, this show, some show.
Yeah.
But here's my hot take on the Kevin Feige situation. And I could be totally wrong, and I probably am, because I'm wrong about all my predictions. I believe Kevin Feige is already actively involved in Star Wars, but not as a director or producer. I think Kevin Feige was brought in by Kathleen Kennedy to work with Favreau and Filoni to say, okay, build a universe that, what's the secret sauce to putting Easter eggs in a random episode of a larger story that connects to later? How did you do that? And it's my belief that Kevin Feige is involved in this larger story. And yeah, he may end up being at the helm of Series X, or, some, maybe, I don't know, just pulling out of the hat, Rangers of the Republic or something. But I don't think he's going to. I think he's already done and contributed to his Star Wars piece by helping Star Wars achieve that Marvelness, if you will, of how to tell stories. That's my own opinion. I could be totally wrong on that, but and if I'm right, that's more powerful than him getting behind the camera or executive producing anything.
Without a doubt. And I think it posits the possibility of the opportunity that he forms the third in the triad with Filoni and Favreau to create this multi-level universe, this MCU, this Star Wars CU, this Mando Plus, whatever we're going to call it. And I think that you're exactly on board. Like, he knows how to weave these interconnecting stories together. He's been a part of that prior to this. And so I think that's a really great way to look at it, even if it doesn't turn into an actual project. Being somebody who's connected to it, because of course we also know that Disney owns both of these properties. Marvel and Star Wars are all, it's all together. So use the best elements you have on each of your properties to make them as good as they can be.
100%. Yep.
So that one's pretty quick. That was pretty easy. The next one's going to be pretty easy too. And I have to say, on a selfish personal level, I have a lot of high hopes for this to still be a thing. And this is the one that has not been in any way, shape, or form shut down. But it's the Rian Johnson Star Wars trilogy.
Yeah.
It was announced, and that's literally the last time we've heard anything about it.
Right.
We've not heard that it has been refuted. We know that Knives Out 2 is done, and we know that he's going to be moving on to other projects. But I have said, and I'll say it until I die, and I've actually maybe thought this earlier this week. Here's where it comes down to me with Empire Strikes Back and The Last Jedi.
Right.
And this is a hot take, so everybody buckle your seatbelts. Empire Strikes Back is my favorite Star Wars movie. The Last Jedi is the best Star Wars movie.
Yeah. Okay.
That's where I come down on it. The narratives in The Last Jedi stop me in my tracks every time I watch it.
Yep.
The meta nature of Luke talking about the hubris of the Jedi and every bit of that movie, I just love it in a way that is very unpopular with a lot of the people in our fandom. But I think it's phenomenal. And I think, and you say, you're the one that said it. Rian Johnson loves Star Wars. J.J. Abrams knows how to make a Star Wars movie. And I misquoted you. So give us the right quote. Somewhere in that area.
The quote that I should put in my my bio on Twitter is that I believe that Rian Johnson is a Star Wars fan and J.J. Abrams is a Star Wars movie fan. And
there it is.
And J.J. Abrams makes great Star Wars movies. He does. But I think I agree with you. I think Rian told a story that is, it's so interesting, and we're teetering on dangerously making this a Last Jedi conversation because we could both go on for an hour about it. But the reality is, what's so great about Last Jedi for me, and I've said this before, and that is that I walked out of The Last Jedi and I said to my friend who I went to go see it with, that was both the best and worst Star Wars movie I ever saw, which means that it's what you should get out of a good movie, right? And then I came back to it and realized that it was the story that was fantastic. And and honestly, and I've said this before too, I don't watch it a lot because it's a heavy movie. It's not a popcorn chomping film. There's a lot going on in that movie. But and I might have said it on our last streaming Star Wars that I think Disney is waiting for, and they're getting very close. If you look at the way they have reacted to some of the politics in the world right now, and not to make this political, and I'll be careful not to, but I think Disney is waiting for the backlash against the Rian Johnson Last Jedi before they move forward with this. And I feel like they're just like, screw it. We don't care. We know the guy makes good stories. I think where they will put him is they will give him a High Republic story. What I want to see them do is give him continue the story he started with Daisy Ridley and Finn. And I saw John Hoey from the Resistance broadcast today posted a tweet that I jumped all over and I loved it. I thought he was spot on. He said, not if, but when we see a Daisy Ridley, John Boyega Star Wars film I'm misquoting him. I apologize, John. But it will also have Grogu. And he's so right. Because look, from a story standpoint, we want that, right? I don't think whether you like Rian Johnson or not, we all want to see Boyega Jedi. We want to see more Daisy Ridley. And from a marketing standpoint, put Grogu on the big screen. Seriously, you cannot sell enough movie tickets for that. It will go on forever. And
my mother, who probably hasn't seen a Star Wars movie in a theater since I was a child, will go see that movie.
Exactly.
And Framey's right there with you. He said, Frank and Amy both. Johnson would be perfect to take the story out past Rise of Skywalker, especially with Broom Boy.
Yes. Yeah. Yep.
That was a very intentionally planted seed. We all saw it. That's exactly right. And I agree with you. I think everybody's money is on High Republic, but let's do the next thing. And let's move it on past that.
As Rare Curly AJ says in the chat, we would all give a week's paycheck to see a film with Daisy Ridley and Grogu. I mean,
Absolutely.
give me Rey and Grogu. Holy cow. My
Let's go.
daughter, who's 12 years old, who's now kind of too cool for Star Wars, she would be first in line to see that.
Yep.
It's your point. Your mom would be there for that. My dad would be there for that.
Without a doubt.
And it's going to and let's let Rian Johnson do it, because we're now past the point where he can quote unquote ruin my Luke Skywalker, right? I mean, it's all that stuff is in the past. Build
It's
a
time
story.
to move beyond
Right.
Luke Skywalker.
Yes.
Now,
man, I want that.
Saying that, yeah, I mean, well, and let's go ahead and put this out there. We talked about prop bets. That's going to come in an episode in a couple of weeks. I'm going to go ahead and make a bold prediction right now.
Yeah.
The live action Star Wars panel that's going to kick off Celebration on, is it on Thursday?
It's on Thursday. Panel? Yep.
Yeah. The Friday panels are the ones that there's a big hole nobody knows anything about.
Which is why I'm going to be going to Disney that day, and I'm going to miss something huge. But
yeah, something's going to be crazy. But Thursday, live action Star Wars panel at Celebration. I'm going to go ahead and say we get an update on a Ryan Star Wars situation.
The place will freaking erupt if Rian Johnson.
I will erupt personally.
I'll lose my mind.
Yeah.
And listen, and here's the thing. And again, back to, there's no denying we cannot avoid the controversy of The Last Jedi, right? There's no, you have to put that on the table. I don't care who you are, because when you do talk to that middle section of the bell curve, there are vehement reactions one way or another to The Last Jedi. Sure. But if you're going to announce that, you announce it at Star Wars Celebration in front of 30,000 people who just love, and you be like, we're going to make a Star Wars movie directed by Quentin Tarantino. People are like, oh my God, yes.
Starring Oscar the Grouch from Sesame Street. Right, those people are going to go crazy.
Perfect. That's what we've been
in the words of Corey Ryan Forrester, the Buttercream Dream.
Yep.
Star Wars fans who love Star Wars. It doesn't matter who's doing it. They're excited.
Yep. You're 100% right. So yes, I mean, the world will freak out if Rian Johnson walks out on stage or is announced at that. So before we move off of that, what do you think is going to happen in this Friday gap and or in this Thursday announcement? Or, I mean, it's not an announcement; it's a panel. But of course, there's going to be announcements.
Well, it's interesting because it is a live action Star Wars panel. That's how it's been pitched to the people that are attending. The announcements they've made, which is Thursday. But we also know on Saturday you've got the Mando Plus panel. So in my mind, you've separated most of the TV stuff out of that Thursday panel. It is all live action, but I think there's the potential to say, hey, let's flesh out some of these movie things. Let's flesh out where Rogue Squadron, is Patty Jenkins going to be there? Let's flesh out, some of these other, things that are on the docket for the movie side of things, maybe with a smattering of TV stuff too.
Yep.
If Favreau shows up, if Filoni shows up, there is, of course, a crossover. But I think it's going to be mostly about movies. And I think that's an exciting part of all of this, because that's the part we've been the least knowledgeable about to this point. That's the part that they've played a little closer to the vest. They've hit it on the head with TV stuff.
Right.
The Mandos have been exciting. Boba Fett has been exciting. Bad Batch, animation, the things that we're getting through Disney Plus and that platform, which is heavily built on Star Wars. I think we could all agree on that.
Yep.
So I think that Thursday live action Star Wars panel has the opportunity to be a lot about movie stuff, because we know Saturday is the Mando Plus panel.
And we know Sunday is Bad Batch, right?
Right. Correct.
Which means
there's animation tie-ins.
Correct. So I think that's going to be an animation panel. So I think we'll probably also hear about the droids show and things like that. So my call for Friday, and this is why I'm going to kick myself for buying those tickets for Friday. For Disneyland. Look, I mean, I'm bringing my 75-year-old father, my 9-year-old son. We got to go to Disneyland one of those days.
Bound to happen.
Thursday, I can't miss the Mandoverse, and Sunday we're leaving, but I want to see Bad Batch. But I think Friday is going to be, and nobody has said a word about this, and I'm shocked. Friday is going to be Attack of the Clones 20th anniversary.
I think that's a very, very great bet.
And that's, I'm going to kick myself because it's, while not my favorite Star Wars film, it's so funny how the prequels have evolved in my mind. And Whereas I used to just sort of groan. And in fact, I was listening as we were preparing for the 3-year anniversary of my show.
Hmm.
Um, I was going back and listening to things, and everybody's like, "Yeah, Attack of the Clones sucks. So that's my least favorite," and blah blah blah. But now the prequels are so they've changed so dramatically in people's minds, and I would love to see a panel that had, Captain Typho and had,
Yep.
just some of the stuff that happened in there. And look, bring back Hayden and Ewan to talk about. I mean, that's the first time they appeared on screen together.
Well, and it sets up a very interesting opportunity because based on what you talked about in the news, Ewan's autograph and photo opportunity moments are Friday and Saturday, correct?
I think so. Yep.
So those are Friday and Saturday. So in the midst of that fact that he's going to be there Friday,
Yep.
they can carve out some time to say, sorry, he can't take pictures during this window of time.
Right.
So he could be on that panel.
Yep, and I'm going to
There's
bet you.
been
I'll bet you $20 right now. Next week we get an announcement about
Hayden.
Hayden doing
Absolutely.
photos
Yeah.
as well.
Within the next, because we're also 2 weeks away from May the 4th, and we're going to get so much stuff between now and May the 4th
Yep.
that, yeah, they're going to be there. And I think you're exactly right. I think the opportunity for Attack of the Clones love, and I'll even put that out there because we had Jar Jar stuff. It was at Chicago when Ahmad Best got, a lot of that love for Phantom Menace and for all those different things, and just kind of coming back full circle to everything he went through.
Yep.
Friday has the opportunity to be the perfect Attack of the Clones 20th, because Celebration loves an anniversary.
It does, and there's already like a logo for Attack of the Clones 20,
Yep.
and
I think you're right on. I think that's what it's going to be
I'm gonna
on
kick
Friday.
myself for missing it, but
I'll cover it for you on behalf of ATG Cast.
Excellent. Yeah. So
right.
Yeah.
So that covers movies.
Yep.
The stuff we know about. There's something in their pocket. There's something else that they're working on. So the other biggest one, that's the one that we want to come to as well, is TV stuff.
Right.
And when you and I kind of divided this up, maybe even earlier today or yesterday, we kind of threw TV in your ballpark. So what are we talking about from a Star Wars TV standpoint?
Yeah. So it's interesting because on the one hand, I think that there's this expectation that everything is coming out in 2022. And even if everything was in the can, if Acolyte and Ahsoka and Andor and Kenobi were all in the can and done and ready to go, you can't release them on top of each other. And if you look at the Marvel sort of release schedule, last year, what did we have? We had Winter Soldier, we had Loki, and we started the Hawkeye show.
WandaVision.
And WandaVision, right? Was that last year or was that the year before? I can't recall. But either way,
I feel like they were all in the same year.
They might have been. Either way, you got to be careful. I think they have to be careful not to pile things on. And it was very interesting that Bad Batch was announced and then sort of pulled back for spring 2022, right? So I think what we know we have for sure, I think the only thing really written in stone until we get to Celebration is we know that we have Kenobi in a couple weeks in May 27th, and we know we have Andor later on this year. And the only reason we know for sure that these are happening is because they're done. They've been shot.
Right.
And I think that they're ready to come out. And I think it's pretty reasonable to expect a Christmas time release of Mandalorian. And in fact, it would be kind of interesting if, much like we were having a tradition for a couple years of Star Wars movies hitting at Christmas time, it would be very cool if the Mandoverse released annually at Christmas time. I think that would be kind of a cool connection. So, of the things we know coming out, let's start with that. We know we have Kenobi coming. We got some really interesting news about the score, the soundtrack. We have, it's interesting, and Alden Diaz, our friend, pointed out today, it was very interesting, that this is a very female-driven series with Deborah Chow, with Nicole as the the soundtrack. We have, a lot of leadership now in Lucasfilm being female. It's interesting that we're now starting to see all that come together. And what's interesting too is
Mhm.
that it's not what's driving it. It just is, right?
Yep.
It's this really unique world where Star Wars is now being created by women as much as it is by men. And
Mhm.
that's great that we don't have to think about it one way or the
It,
other. It
well,
just
it's I love that it is the best person for the job.
right.
It's not, it's not a diversity hire. It's not, we hired a woman because we've never had, it's always been John Williams, so we hired a woman to do the music. No,
Right.
we hired good people to do good work. You know, I've been so on board since the first thing she did. Bryce Dallas Howard's involvement
Yeah.
in The Mandalorian, like, I want more Bryce Dallas Howard Star Wars. Like, I'm
Yes.
so on board for that. Like, she does a good job. She understands, of course, I love, again, go back to the gallery episodes. She talks about growing up with her dad,
Yeah.
hanging out with Steven Spielberg and George Lucas. Like,
Right.
she has a pedigree. She has an understanding and a way to connect to it. But yeah, I love that Star Wars, especially Star Wars TV, but even with Rogue Squadron and Patty
Yeah,
Jenkins
Patty
and all
Jenkins.
these
Yep.
other things, like Amanda Stenberg, like, pick the people that are going to do a great job and let it be Star Wars. Like,
Yep.
that's what George Lucas would have done, in my opinion. Like, he picked people that did good work.
Yep. 100%. And I think that's very exciting for Kenobi. What's interesting about Andor, let's talk about that for a second,
Yeah.
is we know virtually nothing about that show at this point. I mean, there's been
Mm-hmm.
some rumors of sets and things like that, but much like, and it's funny how many times I've said this, and it's really true. When I've heard about things, like when I first heard about the Mandalorian, I was like, I don't think I need that. When I first heard about Kenobi, I was like, I don't think I need that. Andor, but this is going to be a very interesting show, and I think not because so much of the Rogue One connection, which of course is
Right.
super important, and Diego Luna as the lead is
Yeah.
fantastic, and I'm looking forward to that. But the connections that they're starting to create in between series, and to find out and to get some more insight into these other things, and there were some rumblings during the week about the fact that Reva, however we
Yeah.
say her name in Kenobi, is going to have a big part in the Kenobi series. And of course, the anti woke, the lunatics on social media and YouTube made a big deal about that and said, well, why do we need a character arc for a villain and blah blah blah. First of all, that's just clearly it's thinly veiled hatred, right? Period.
Right.
But second of all, if the Kenobi series is leveraged to create the story of a new character, right? If the internet existed the way it does today, and leaks about Ahsoka came out for the Clone Wars, first of all, we can all admit the Clone Wars was, as a movie, not
Yep.
everybody's favorite, right? I'm not going to
Right.
say it was bad. It wasn't
Sure.
great, but it wasn't what everybody wanted. But I mean, can you imagine the internet today finding out Anakin Skywalker is going to have a teenage apprentice? People will be like,
Right.
"Oh man, it's so woke. It's so stupid. This is not going to work." Ahsoka is now got to be among. It doesn't matter who you are. It's one of your favorite characters, right?
Without a doubt.
She's evolved so well. There's opportunity here for a character like Reva. Now, into the Andor series, we know nothing about what's coming there. Are there characters there that we're going to just fall in love with and just want more and more and more from? And I think that's a big possibility.
I agree. And I think my biggest personal disappointment is, at this point, they have kind of announced and said that K2SO is not a huge part, if any part. Now, of course, there's PR things at work. There's some teases at work. There's some whatever, but like K2SO was a great part of Rogue One. And
Sure.
that interaction between him and Cassian, like, I love that. So of course I want more of K2. I want more of that to be a part of it. But you're exactly right. We don't know what we're going to get. And I think that's what's so exciting. But it's that weird thing of, like, we have no idea, but we know that it's done. Like,
Right.
they've shot it. Like, it's in
Yep.
the can. They're in post-production. Like, this thing is coming.
Yeah, and as leaky as Lucasfilm has been, the fact that we haven't gotten anything, I mean, a couple things here and there, but nothing that we know for sure, nothing that we can hang our hat on. That's pretty exciting. So now
This is
if
a
we
great question. I'm
yeah,
sorry, go ahead.
go ahead.
I would say it's a great question from Framey. It said, "Did we hear that the guy that Cassian shot in the back will appear in the series?" I don't remember reading that, but it makes a lot of sense that it
Yeah.
could be a contact that he had prior, because of course this is going to be stuff that's prior to Rogue One. The
Yep.
Andor series is going to be before Rogue One. So yeah, that it could be a contact he had, that could be somebody that he had a previous connection with. It would be a fun, as we call them, Easter eggs and fan service, to bring that person back for something else.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting because to highlight a character that we know doesn't have a future
Mm-hmm.
is a challenge. Um, But Star Wars did that with with Anakin Skywalker, right?
Correct.
They made an entire prequel trilogy knowing we knew he was going to end up losing his limbs, burning
Yeah.
up in a fire and becoming Darth Vader, but we still
Right.
went there. We, I referenced it earlier, and because I just watched it just this past week, was the Twilight of the Apprentice.
Mm-hmm.
Spoiler alert: the fifth brother doesn't live through Twilight of the Apprentice. He's taken out like a bitch in that,
Yep.
right? He goes down pretty easy, but he looks like he's a pretty menacing bad guy in Kenobi, which is cool. So
Yeah.
Star Wars is creating things right now that kind of allow you to either watch it from front to back and be surprised along the way if you're brand new, or to
Mm-hmm.
just get enough of a, oh yeah, I remember that guy kind of situation.
Yep.
And I think the biggest one of those is what's going to happen with Ahsoka.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's two major things coming up in the Ahsoka series, and I'm really excited to see what people in the chat have to say about this. In that, we know in the Ahsoka series, or we don't know for sure, but we're pretty sure it is the hunt for Ezra, right? Ezra
Right.
disappeared on a space whale with Thrawn.
Yep.
The fact that they deliberately made Ahsoka on the hunt for Thrawn in the few moments we got with her in The Mandalorian tells you that that's what that series is going to be about.
Yes.
Now, we don't know what's exciting about that. And I think one of the reasons as Star Wars fans we're so thrilled to see what's going to happen is this is a Star Wars story that we don't know the ending to. We
Yep.
don't know if Sabine, Ezra, Thrawn, or Ahsoka die in that journey. We
Mm-hmm.
don't know what happens to Ahsoka, and that's
Right.
what's really cool. And so that makes her really kind of a wild card in that series.
Well, and we
Yeah,
hear her voice in The Rise of Skywalker
yeah, yep,
when Rey is, at the end against Palpatine, "Be with me, all the Jedi," the various voices that we hear. Ahsoka's voice is one of the voices we hear.
yep,
So we are to assume from that moment Ahsoka is dead.
yep,
But beyond that, we don't know anything, exactly like you said. So it creates that moment, and we get the tease of it in the Mandalorian episode where Ahsoka faces off with I can't think of her name
I
now,
can't
but
remember her name either. Yeah,
yeah, when she says, "Where's Grand Admiral Tarkin?"
Thrawn.
The last time we've seen Ahsoka before that was when she shows up to grab Sabine to say, "It's time to go find Ezra," because
Yeah,
that was the promise. That was the end of Rebels. So everything has pointed to, and I think this goes back to our other thing about the live action Star Wars panel, probably Mando Plus on Saturday, an announcement of what's his name as Thrawn, Mads Mikkelsen as Thrawn, Morgan
yes,
Elsbach, that's right. But having those moments and having the confluence of all those different things come together.
yep,
And with this Ahsoka show, like, every indication is that it's about finding Ezra.
yeah,
And we've got Mina Masad, who has been, fan casted / maybe really casted to be Ezra. We've got all these things that have kind of been rumored and in place. Like, that has the potential to be what that show is, but at the same time, we have no idea.
right. And
I
that
think Celebration is going to change that, but we
I
don't
think
have any
yes,
idea.
yeah. I think Celebration. We're not, here's the thing to remember about Celebration. It is it is in Anaheim. There is rumors that starting at the end of this month, the beginning of next month, the Ahsoka series is starting to shoot in Los Angeles. I think that Mandoverse, Mando Plus panel is going to get a Rosario Dawson walk on. I think it's going to
Yep.
get some walk ons from some big names. And I do believe that we will get some announcements. And um, we're not going to get any footage, of course, because they literally will have just started it. But I mean, I can't see Favreau and Filoni sitting on a stage in their big comfy chairs and not saying something to
Right.
get us excited. And again, keep in mind, they did think about Star Wars Chicago, Star Wars Celebration
Mhm.
Chicago. They did a full Mandalorian panel. They showed scenes that nobody saw except those that wink wink sort of didn't see them on the internet, right?
Right.
Um, we still didn't know anything about Grogu, so we're gonna get just enough to be super excited about the Ahsoka series and this Mandoverse. I think this is where they will unveil and kind of come clean and say, "Look, yes, the next 6 series are going to be about the Mandalorian and this entire sort of super story, which will include, I think, some of the, again, as we said at the top of the show, throwbacks to the Legends stories to give you go back and read the original Thrawn series and look for clues there, because I think we're going to get some there. I think we're going to get some wild insights from
Mhm.
those legend stories.
Without a doubt. Well, that leaves two other things, and I know we're getting close to wanting to wrap this up, but as we're talking about TV shows, the two things that we have on deck that we haven't talked about yet, Mando season 3,
Yep.
and we also have Rangers of the New Republic.
Yep.
Rangers of the New Republic has not been officially shut down.
Right.
It's been delayed, it's been pushed out, it's been kind of not talked about, but I think there's a lot of potential. And let's do Mando season 3 first, and then let's come to Rangers. So, what do you feel with Mando season 3? Carl Weathers?
Yeah.
Carl Weathers has tweeted
Apollo
about,
Creed.
Apollo Creed. Carl Weathers from Arrested Development has also posted about, it was his birthday. So excited to celebrate my birthday on the set of Mando season 3. Like, he's directing, he's involved.
Yep.
There's stuff going on there. What are your thoughts on Mando 3?
Everything went out the window when there were 2 season 3 Mandalorian episodes in Book of Boba Fett. So
Yeah.
it's funny. And again, Star Wars has done this so much and so well in lowering expectations and then blowing them out of the water. I have to admit, as much as I loved the Mando episodes of Book of Boba Fett, I feel a little bit let down because those were things that I expected to see in season 3. But I think season 3 is going to really flesh out the legend of Mandalore. And
Okay.
I think I said this on the old version of streaming Star Wars, that the reason it's called The Mandalorian is not because he happens to be the Mandalorian and everybody calls him Hey Mando and things like that. It's because he is the Mandalorian.
The
He is
Mandalorian.
the guy. Now, there's something, and again, I'll reference Alden Diaz one more time, who put it in writing and made me realize it. Grogu could be the Mandalorian as well,
Right.
because he's a Jedi Mandalorian. He's definitely Mandalorian based on the creed, right? He's part of the clan of 2. Grogu is officially Mandalorian now, but
Right.
he's a Jedi, right? Or he's at least got that Force sensitivity. He was trained in the Jedi Temple before Order 66. So maybe Grogu is the Mandalorian. But either
Yep.
way, I think we're going to get more detail on that. I think we're going to set it up for season 4 where it will all come together.
Absolutely. And I love, and Framey threw this in the chat a minute ago. Remember the gift that Lucasfilm employees got a Christmas or 2 ago that had show titles on it?
Yep.
Tales of the Jedi was on that. So far, we've had crickets on that. So there's opportunity to explain, what is Tales of the Jedi going to be? Is it a show? Is it a book? Is it something else?
I think it's, I might call this an animated series.
Okay. I love that. And
yeah.
Fleshing out some in between times, whether it's between Return and Force Awakens, something like that.
Yeah. I think it's Luke's Jedi Temple all in animation, so that they don't have to worry about de-aging and things like that.
Absolutely. And Dale's right on track with you. He said, I was just going to say, are you sure Grogu is not the Mandalorian?
Right.
So the last thing that leaves, and this may be, I don't want to say it's the most controversial because there's Star Wars and there's lots of controversy pretty much at any moment around every corner. Rangers of the New Republic.
Yeah. Yep.
Matthew
Matt.
chimed in at exactly the right time.
Yep.
The Ranger series would be awesome with Timothy Oliphant. I want to come back to that comment, but I want to hear what you think, Pete, first of all, with Rangers, because Cara Dune was seemingly going to be the driving factor in Rangers of the New Republic.
Yep.
And then all the stuff went down with that actress in real life.
Yep.
Disney, the non-renewal of her contract, which was not a firing. It's an important point to make. But they changed directions. Now, I think there's several directions they can still go. And Matthew hit on one of them. But what do you feel about Rangers of the New Republic?
It's funny. I think there was this really quick reaction that they're not going to do it. I think Rangers of the Republic plays an important role in that bigger Mandoverse story to talk about. If you're going to connect the stories to the sequel series, which they're going to do, right? And I don't care what the fandom menace says about. I mean, we've literally seen Snoke in a jar, right? In Mando season 2. So there's a direct connection, and you can't do that, or you can, but you can't effectively pull the story together without referencing the New Republic. And I think there's been so much stuff with Paul Sun-Young Lee, with the various X-Wing pilots. Yep. I think there's a story to be told there, and I think you need to set up the New Republic so that by the time, again, as we were saying before, they are now creating stories where you can watch it from episode 1 to episode 9 and all the content that comes in between, or you can watch what you want to watch and enjoy it. But you will care a hell of a lot more about the Republic that we see in the sequels if we get some insight into that and the role they play in the Return of Mandalore, which I think is going to be a big part of it. So I think it's coming still. I haven't buried it yet.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think there again is several opportunities. We left Book of Boba Fett in the post-credit scenes of Book of Boba Fett. We get Cobb Vanth, and I'm a loud lover of Cobb Vanth. I'm a loud lover of Timothy Oliphant because of Deadwood, because of Justified. He showed up in a Star Wars, which is like the confluence of my worlds being, perfect and together. But in that post-credit scene, we get him in the Bacta tank. Like,
yep.
There's a reason they do that. The same way you get at the end, I think it's at the end of Civil War, and you get Bucky in Wakanda in the frozen thing. Like, Cobb Vanth is coming back. We're going to get more of that. So does Cobb Vanth become one of the Rangers of the New Republic? Maybe. But also, former friend of the show, former guest of Podcast of the Wills during Podathon, Paul Sun-Young Lee.
Yep.
Carson Teva shows up in the Book of Boba Fett in that one scene when Mando goes with the Naboo fighter into space to basically get pulled over for a speeding ticket. They let him off with a warning, but that was it. Like, you don't do that unless there's other things on deck. There's other things. And I think that Paul Sun-Young Lee, who is fantastic in Kim's Convenience, if you haven't watched Kim's Convenience on Netflix, it's a great sitcom. Just this year, he won the Canadian version of an Emmy for, best comedy series for APA in Kim's Convenience. He's a fantastic actor, and he loves Star Wars. He's a Star Wars fan. I mean, not to be super self-promotional, but when he was on with me during Podathon, he tells the story of getting to hold Biggs Darklighter's helmet and put it on as a framing reference for his costume for Mandalorian, and how it wanted to make him weep because he was like, I grew up with this. Like, it's such a cool story, and he's a great actor, and I think would be a great, between him and Timothy Oliphant, like, let's make Rangers Paul and Timothy. Like, let's do that. So
I think it'd be great. And I would love to get, we don't have, it's funny, we know a lot about Cobb Vanth because of what we got from Chuck Wendig's book, but we still know nothing about Cobb Vanth. So,
correct.
My initial thought was that Cobb Vanth would take over as Daimyo for Tatooine, but it would be cooler if he got to be part of the Republic
Yeah,
and also leverage Boba Fett's sort of underworld connections to build the Republic. It's interesting when you look at the way stories are told, they reflect the times. And when episode 4, 5, and 6 came out, we were in a much more idealistic spot as
sure.
a country, as a society. When we look at where we are today, we recognize that the good guys aren't 100% good guys and the bad guys aren't 100% bad guys, and that the gray area that Star Wars actually made cool 40 years ago with The Empire Strikes Back, that gray area that Lando lived in, that Boba Fett lived in, is actually that's where we are today, which means that when you tell your story of what the Republic looks like, I don't think it's out of the question that the Republic leans on some of these questionable folks to achieve the goals that they need to, which means you need Boba Fett. And
Yep.
again, what's Cobb Vanth's story? Has he always been, is he a Tatooine sort of rat, or does he have some experience that can go elsewhere? So yeah.
Yeah, and I agree with you. And I think that's the whole thing, not only with the rebellion, but with the resistance is it's a ragtag bunch. Like
Yep.
it's always been from the beginning of Star Wars, the ragtag bunch of rebels, individuals, people who are seeking something outside of the oppression of the Empire, the oppression of the First Order,
Yep.
whatever it is. That's that energy that is trying to be channeled, and that fits perfectly within that narrative.
100%. 100%.
Well, Pete, on
Yeah.
top of movies and TVs, which we spent a bunch of time talking about,
Yeah.
there's so many other things, and we don't have time to get to them. There's comic books, there's actual books, there's toys, there's video games. I know
Yep.
that a lot of us are still currently living in the joys of Lego Skywalker saga.
Yes.
I just finished earlier this week. I've got all the way through episode 9, so I have finished the whole saga, and now
You
I'm ready
did.
for
Holy
free
cow.
play,
Look at you. Nice.
which is fun. And shout out to Gary Moore, who was in the chat earlier. Gary sent me the download codes because he accidentally bought it twice. So I have the Rogue One and whatever the other DLC pack is.
Nice.
So I'm ready for free play. I'm ready to go out, and I said early, like Canto Bight, like I'm excited to go back to Canto Bight as a Lego Star Wars guy and just like do some things. But there's a bunch there. Samuel has a great point. Star Wars Visions season 2. That's another one that's on deck. We
There's
know is
that
coming.
100%. And I think, I think the rumors that we're going to get an official announcement at Celebration for that. And I think we're going to my guess is late summer for that. And the other thing we didn't talk about is Acolyte,
Yeah,
which will start filming in October, which means it's a 2023. And
right.
that could be the first thing that brings High Republic to the rest of the world,
The
right? And
mainstream. That's right.
that's the interesting thing about this weird embarrassment of riches right now that we have, is that there is this segment of the fans that you and I talk to on social media every day that are just adamant about the High Republic. I will admit, I love Cavan and I love all Claudia Gray
Yep.
and all those guys. I just haven't been able to get as deep into it as I've wanted to.
Same.
I read 2 of the graphic novels with my son. They're very cool. I mean, they're not graphic novels; they're sort of comic book storytelling. But the Daniel Jose Older stuff, and it's a cool story. But Acolyte could make that connection and pull in the quote unquote normies into High Republic. I feel like High Republic right now is just the ultimate Star Wars nerds that are just like, yes,
Yep.
give me anything Star Wars. But if Acolyte does its job, it's going to make people want to go and pull into what happened at the end of the High Republic. Why did whatever happens in Acolyte happen? So that's very exciting as well. So
There's so much there, and I'm with you 100%. And you and I talk about it again offline when we text 100 times a day about all the different things that we talk about. High Republic is the one that like I need and want to get into, but I haven't yet. And something I learned about myself, and I've said this on another show, maybe one of our shows. I thought audiobooks was the way because I listen to podcasts pretty much nonstop all the time.
Yep.
But for audiobooks, I'm too distracted. Like, I still need to read a real book.
Right.
Because
Yeah.
if I listen to an audiobook, I look up and 20 minutes later, I'm doing a bunch of stuff and I haven't heard anything that was said to me by Mark Thompson or whoever else it
Yeah.
is in my
Yep.
ear. I need the focus of holding a book, and so I haven't done that yet.
Yes.
But I recognize those stories. I recognize the popularity of those stories. And
Yep.
I'm excited to, at some point, go, okay, I guess it's my time to dive into those. And like you said, the Acolyte might be the thing that pushes me into that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I hear what you're saying on books. It's funny. I'm reading. I got the advanced copy of Mike Chen's Brotherhood, and to
I'm
read
jealous of
that,
that, BT dubs.
yeah, um, reading that as a book is. I'm actually, as much as I love Mark Thompson, I'm glad I'm reading it as a book because it pulled me in. And boy, oh boy,
Yep.
man, it is great. And Mike Chen, it's so funny. He was on my show when he wrote his short story for Certain Point of View,
Yep.
Empire Strikes Back.
ESV.
And then he was also on a show that I did where we talked about just the characters, the most fleshed out Star Wars characters. And we talked about Anakin and Ahsoka and Maul. You can tell that Mike Chen is just a fanboy who happens to be writing a Star Wars book. And it's so good. I can't wait for everybody to get a chance to read it because it's so good.
Yeah.
From a fan, because it also takes place in that magic spot that we haven't really seen much of between 2 and 3, and
Yep.
and the references to things, it's fanboy material, but in the
I
best
can't wait.
possible way. Yeah.
And for anybody who's watching this on YouTube, and for all of our friends at Disney and Lucasfilm who allowed the fact that Pete got a, advanced copy of Brotherhood, Pete and I talk 100 times a day.
Right.
He has not said a single word to me about this book, and I'm dying because I wish I had an advanced copy. He hasn't spoiled it. He hasn't done anything. But while we don't have time to get to video games fully, comic books fully, books fully, I did, because I put this together.
Yeah.
You mentioned Brotherhood, Mike Chen, and also Shadow of the Sith, which is Adam Christopher, which is Luke and Lando looking for Ochi. Like, it's set in that time frame, which we also get in Rise of Skywalker. Like, there's other crazy and cool stuff coming on the book front, which again makes me realize I need to be better about reading books instead of laying in bed watching the same show on Netflix that I've watched for 5 years. I should lay in bed and read a book.
Yeah. I mean, but it's hard. And that's, I mean, I think so. When we think about the phrase embarrassment of riches, it is almost a spot where we like, it's almost too much Star Wars stuff. Like, you have to make decisions. Think about it this way: before the sequels came out, you didn't have to make a decision. You're like, okay, here's the next book, I'm going to read this book, and here's the next video game, I'm going to play this game. Now it's, am I going to follow High Republic, or am I going to read the books that take place at this point or that point? Am I going to get up at 5 a.m. to watch the series, or am I going to, there's so many things that are going on. You do have to make decisions right now, and that's where the challenge, and where I think Filoni and Favreau need a standing ovation, is they are integrating all of the content. I mean, we literally got references to Jedi Fallen Order in what was it? Was it Bad Batch? From a distance, but you
we get Battlefront 2 and Mando Season 2 when they talk about Operation Cinder. Like,
exactly. So you don't,
every bit of that is tying together.
Right. And the great thing, and the thing that they're doing so well, is you don't need to know that. But if you do, it is fulfilling. If you don't, it's cool stuff. Right. So we're in a really exciting time as Star Wars fans. And, I would dare say the story is more complex than the MCU, because there's so many different ways to get it. And that's a really exciting time.
Well,
right now,
you are, and I've credited you this for a long time, but you're the one that, I first heard saying windows and doors into Star Wars. The way Jack got into Star Wars is not the way that my Harper and Lily got into Star Wars. It's not the way that, somebody in between 9, 10, and 14 got into Star Wars. Like, we all have different entry points. We all have different ways.
Yep.
And the fact that where we are now, with TV shows, with animation. My 10-year-old said to me very recently, she's like, Dad, I want to learn more about Star Wars. I want to start, like, everybody finds their own way and they find their own connecting point to it.
Mm-hmm.
Some of my kids love to read. Some of my kids don't. And so to have a book, to have a show, to have whatever it is that speaks to you in whatever media format appeals to you is really special. Creates that opportunity to continue to expand what they're doing. And I think you're right. I think compared to MCU on a lot of levels, it's actually more diverse and spread out. But in the moment, we don't see that because there's a bigger picture there.
Right. Exactly. 100%. So, so I guess we can probably, maybe we pick up video games in a couple weeks or something.
That's right. That's right. We've got time to get to that.
Yeah. So, but Nick, this was a great conversation. I was excited about what was happening and coming up for Star Wars going into this conversation, but now I'm even more hyped. I think there's so much, and I think whether you're going to be at Celebration or not. So first of all, if you're going to be at Celebration, please find Nick and I. We want to see you. We want to break we want to break the Celebration rules and give you a big hug or a handshake at least.
A big hug. And give you stickers and give you buttons. Like, we've got all kinds of stuff.
We've got so much crap to give away. It's going to be insane. So please come and see us. If you're not going to be, we will miss you. But if, again, patrons are going to get all the same stuff that those that are at Celebration will. So become a patron. Go to patreon.com/atgcast and become a patron. And that way you'll also be able to be a guest when we do our shows. But more importantly, whether you're at Celebration or not, May 27th, 8th, and 9th are going to change the face of Star Wars for the next couple of years, because we're going to get a lot of announcements, a lot of exciting things. So make sure you're following StarWars.com to watch the threads, and follow us, because we're going to be hanging out. We're going to be talking to you on the floor. We're going to be bringing you some sort of coverage. We haven't figured out exactly what it's going to be yet, but it's going to be some fun stuff for sure. So
without a doubt. Well, and let's do this as we wrap up. You had a new episode that dropped yesterday. Tell us what you had coming that is available now for folks to listen to.
Yeah. So right now I dropped an episode with Adam Russell, who's the bass player. What is it with Star Wars and bass players? Well, we talk about that on the show.
That's right.
He's the bass player from a band called Story of the Year. If you are a fan of music from the early 2000s, you know his band. He's also the very funny. He's also the co-host of a show called Thank the Maker, which is, I say it about a handful of shows. There's only really there's so many great Star Wars podcasts, but Thank the Maker is one that I never miss. And I was actually on one a couple weeks ago. I was honored to be with those guys. But yeah, so we had Adam Russell, and then 2 weeks on Around the Galaxy. The next one is going to be a couple of artists that are going to be at Star Wars Celebration. But you have a fun show coming up this week, Nick. Who do you have coming up?
I do indeed. We are ready to kick off the Phantom Menace canon study. And there was really no better person to kick off that particular canon study with than original Star Wars show host, Peter Townley.
Yeah.
I love Peter. Peter's been on with you. Peter's been on with Jerry and Scotty a couple times. He loves Star Wars. He is currently a cattle rancher in California. Like, he's doing all these crazy, awesome things. But we spent probably the first 45 or 50 minutes of the show literally just breaking down the opening crawl of Phantom Menace, which is important. But I'm just going to say, if you're up on world history, or if you're not up on world history, this is the show for you, because Peter's going to bring in things like the Opium Wars and like real world things that happened in our world that tie to, the Phantom Menace and things that it's a fun episode. It's very historical. It may be end up a little bit. I'm finishing up the edit this weekend. Actually, it may be a little bit bigger than a normal episode.
Nothing wrong with that.
But it's worth it. It's a good thing. So yeah, Peter Townley is going to kick off our Phantom Menace canon study. And then in the next couple of weeks, we've got Boop and JD from the Nerd Herder podcast. Nice. We've got our good friend Scotty from Bombad, because if there's anybody who loves Phantom Menace as much as anybody I know, it's Scotty J-Rowe.
Yes.
So those are coming up in the next several weeks. But this week, this Thursday, is going to be Peter Townley, Phantom Menace canon study.
Cannot wait for that. That's going to be great. And we will have another streaming Star Wars in probably 2 weeks. That's the plan
Yep.
right now. And we are both now. It's so exciting that you're going to be there, man, and at Star Wars Celebration, preparing for that. And so keep up with us. Follow us on social media at ATGcast. Hang out with us here on our YouTube channel. Follow us on atgcast.com. Become a patron. We would love to. Listen, I sent a note out to some folks today. If you're thinking about becoming a patron, now is the time to do it, because it doesn't matter what tier you come in on, you're going to get the full swag pack on day one. And when we return from Star Wars Celebration, you're going to get everything that we gave away at Star Wars Celebration. We have some Star Wars Celebration only swag that we're giving out there that you will get as being for being a patron. So, Nick, this has been a blast, man. May the Force be with you.
Always.